surreal day at the Trump trial in New York City. Very bizarre. Joe Biden's team has distanced themselves from this Trump trial, which I think is a wise move for them, until today, when they sent out Robert De Niro and 2 Capitol Hill police officers. Here's another clip of the press conference they gave.
First of all, let me say this first and foremost. We're not here today because of what's going on over there. We're here today because you all are here. And so we are glad that you're all here this morning. We're here primarily because of the threat that Donald Trump poses to the United States of America and to our democracy.
Do you consider Trump a threat to all these wars Biden has gotten us into?
Any media questions?
Is this a weaponization of the Justice Department, sir?
Any media questions?
You want to answer the real questions, only the fake news?
But this city is pretty accommodating. We make room for clowns. We have them all over the city. People who do crazy things in the street, we tolerate it. It's part of the city, it's part of the culture. But not a person like Trump who will eventually run the country. That does not work, and we all know that. Anyway, we make room for clowns, to each his own. But no one takes him or took him really seriously. They take him seriously now, of course. And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedoms and hold on to our humanity is to vote for Joe Biden for president. Really. We don't have a choice.
Robert De Niro is a lunatic. He's like Keith Olbermann, totally obsessed TDS guy. So here's all you need to know about how this happened. Polls are awful for Joe Biden right now. The Politico had an article, Dems in full-blown freakout over Biden. So this is the sign of a campaign that is in, as Trump would say, total freefall. The great Josh Hammer is here, host of America on Trial with Josh Hammer, and he's going to be hosting Jesse Kelly's show tomorrow right here. Josh, good to talk to you, brother.
Mike, always good to see you, my friend.
So it was extra weird today because it was closing arguments today. So what happened?
Yeah, so first of all, let me just address the Robert De Niro thing. You know, Mike, I mean, this kind of pains me on a very personal level. I mean, I grew up, I feel like I grew up with Robert De Niro. I mean, like, he was everywhere. I mean, he was with Meet the Parents, with Ben Stiller and all that. But when I got old enough to watch older films and appreciate it felt like Robert De Niro was the star of every single one. I mean, Godfather Part 2, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Casino, a legendary actor. So to watch him choose to go out like this as a partisan left-wing hack, as a sycophant for the New York Times, CNN, MSDNBC agenda, it's really sad. I mean, to go out not the bang, but just with a profound whimper. So on a personal level, as a longtime fan of Robert De Niro's, I mean, this has just been an awful start to the day so far. But what's actually happening in the courtroom, as you allude to, is frankly much more important than all of the Sturm und Drang, all of the drama outside the courtroom. What's happening now is we are getting to jury instructions. At this point, I'm probably not going to come till tomorrow. But jury instructions are going to possibly make or break this trial, because the judge, who's going to have to be very, very specific with how he instructs the jurors with what to look for there, he's going to have some decisions to make here. And the big problem for the judge, which is the big problem for this case in general, is that the prosecution, Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo, Susan Hoffinger, all the prosecutors there in the Manhattan DA's office, they have thus far, this is the single most important legal facet of this entire case, Mike, they have thus far failed to actually say what the black letter theory of the case is. Let me say that again. We are about to reach a verdict in the first ever criminal trial of a former president of the United States, and the prosecution has literally not even told the American people or the broader world, they've not told humanity what the actual legal theory is. We know that it is 34 counts of fraudulent bookkeeping in New York State, but we are also told it's in furtherance of something else. They haven't actually said what that something else is. As you and I have discussed elsewhere, we can surmise, that it is in furtherance of a federal U.S. campaign finance law violation. First of all, dubious at best whether Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, can even bring a federal prosecution of this nature, especially when the U.S. Attorney's Office, the federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, looked into this and then passed on that. Second of all, most important, is that even if you assume that that is the actual law here, You need an unambiguous, exclusive, and sole finding of specific intent on the part of Donald Trump and the Trump organization. In other words, they have to show beyond a reasonable doubt, because that's a threshold for all of this, that the $130,000 in alleged hush money payments made to Michael Cohen, which is not a crime at all in and of itself, that's totally legal, no matter what you might think of it morally, totally legal. They have to show that that was made for the sole, exclusive, and unambiguous purpose of actually helping Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. Will Juan Barchan actually put that into the jury instructions? I don't know. That's kind of where my guessing game ends up short, because I don't know what's in this guy's head. But that is what I'm looking for at this point.
Okay, jury instructions. What a fascinating thing that if you didn't go to law school or haven't been on a jury, don't really know what it is. But what you said there, you said sole. So that payment has to be made, proven beyond a reasonable doubt, which I'd love if you could define that again for us. But beyond a reasonable doubt that it was done for the sole purpose of advancing this other crime or helping his campaign, right? But it could be done for also other purposes, and that would negate that?
Yeah, so I mean that since day one has been one of the easiest ways for the Trump legal defense, in my mind, to try to prove that he is not guilty of these crimes. And the Trump the defense did not actually call a lot of witnesses. They only called 2 witnesses to the stand there. But we got into this a little bit in some of their testimony. If you can introduce anything remotely resembling mixed motives into these hush money payments to Michael Cohen in 2016. Again, even conceding for the sake of argument that these payments even happened, that's a factual dispute, even conceding that they happened here. If you can introduce any mixed motives into why Donald Trump and the Trump organization felt the need to make these payments, the prosecution's case is over. It's donezo. So in other words, you can show that maybe Donald Trump wanted to make these payments to try to hide his son, Barron Trump, to try to prevent him from being bullied in middle school or something like that. If you can introduce any kind of evidence that would demonstrate that, I don't know, a very reasonable thing, like maybe Donald Trump wanted to protect his marriage with Melania. He didn't want Melania to kind of hear all of this salacious stuff from Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. If they can introduce that, then the prosecution's case fails. But it's also this beyond a reasonable doubt threshold, which is a very, very high criminal threshold. And this notion that in a criminal case that you have to really, really, really show beyond a reasonable doubt that the guy is guilty, that goes way, way back to the English common law. I'll whip out a good quote for you, Slater. So there's a great English common lawyer by the name of Sir William Blackstone. He was alive in the 18th century. He was probably the single most formidable codifier of the entire English common law, which America inherited at the time of our founding. And in his most famous work, his 1775 Commentaries on the Laws of England, Blackstone famously said that it is better to let 100 guilty men walk scot-free than to put one innocent person behind bars. That is kind of the best way to think about beyond a reasonable doubt. That notion right there is codified into our law. So again, with that, having said all that, I have to reasonably expect that if there is any juror on this jury who has any scruples in his or her bones, if they're approaching this with any degree of intellectual honesty, then there's going to be a hung jury. It's New York City, so maybe that won't be the case, but we'll see.
So hung jury, again, means just one person. There's one holdout. So it could be a Trump supporter. It could be just a fair person. It could be, remember there's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's some lawyers on this jury as well. So they know that Blackstone quote as well. So just one of those guys to be like, guys, no, forget it. It didn't meet that threshold. That's a hung jury. And then I guess, what are the legal ramifications of that? And then what are the political ramifications of a hung jury? Especially knowing that most people, and even most people in the media, probably don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so hung jury means exactly what you just said, which is you literally just need one. You need one juror. So basically, for a criminal trial in America, at this point, all 50 states require a unanimous criminal jury for conviction. Now, that wasn't always the case. Back in the day, you could actually define beyond a reasonable doubt as being 3/4, 80%. But in a Supreme Court case 3 or 4 years ago, the Supreme Court actually overturned the last 2 holdouts, which were the states of Louisiana and Oregon of all states. And they actually now have it constitutionally mandated that all 50 states, even in their state courts, have to have a unanimous jury for criminal conviction. So that actually is what has to happen here. And if you get one jury holdout, then you actually have a hung jury. So to your point as well, which is a point that I've been making on America on Trial for at least a month or two now, since we learned the jurors' identity, or at least their vocational backgrounds, I've been saying over and over again that, yes, I actually am cautiously optimistic about the fact that there are two jurors who are lawyers by training, like myself. Again, they're probably liberals. I mean, this is New York City, so they're probably liberals. But at a bare minimum, Mike, You have two people who went to law school, who understands that the very first thing you need to do when you're looking at a legal case is to, at a bare minimum, ask, what is the law? Are we citing constitutional provisions here? Are we citing criminal statutes, civil statutes? Is it judge-made common laws, international treaty? Is it United Nations so-called international law, which AKA is actually fake law? But like, what is the actual source of law here? At a bare minimum, a juror who is a lawyer should be asking these questions. Again, the prosecution has not met even this bare bones, rudimentary threshold, which is why I saw Tom Cotton earlier today say that a judge in Juan Merchan's position should not even let this thing get to a jury. He should just dismiss it or deliberately instruct jurors to order a conviction. That's what he should, an acquittal. That's what he should do. He's not going to do so, though. So I guess we're just going to have to see.
Wow. So we got about a minute. When do you expect there to be a decision made by the jury? And then what do you think the political ramifications are going to be of this, especially knowing that most people will hear hung jury and they'll think that he was sentenced to hanging. So most people have no idea what that will even mean. So what do you see the political ramifications?
Yeah, we're probably going to find out this week. I would be surprised if it goes till next week, although it's possible. I mean, it's possible that the jury really just takes a lot of time to deliberate here. But they've been chewing on this for weeks now. They haven't heard a ton of new information, to be honest with you, over the past week or so, ever since Michael Cohen got off the witness stand. The Michael Cohen testimony really should have been the final nail in the coffin for the prosecution. They probably should have just wrapped it up and gone straight to a jury vote at that point because, objectively speaking, there's no coming back from that. The political ramifications of a hung jury or acquittal, I think, are fantastic for Donald Trump. He will skyrocket up the polls there. On the flip side, if they actually convict and they really do put him in Rikers Island, God forbid, for, a day or two or maybe even longer than that, I don't think it's going to help Democrats, Mike. I could even see a situation like that where it might politically backfire in their face as well.
Yeah, I think Trump's in a win-win right here. Josh Hammer, America on Trial. That's the podcast. You can download, listen to it everywhere, and please do. Josh, great to talk to you, brother.